Hello and welcome everyone, this is Binam, and in this short video I want to talk about degree of operating leverage, also known as DOL. But before that I want to give you a quick background which is about various types of industries and related cost, okay, particularly the fixed cost. So you can think of hotel industries and airline industries, and in the case of these industries what will happen is the fixed cost is going to be much more higher than in the case of some other industries such as supermarket industries, right? Because in case of supermarket industries, of course, there will be some fixed costs such as the rent of the building, insurance and so on, but the variable cost is the major cost. For example, if a consumer wants to buy a bottle of milk, the suppliers such as Walmart need to order that bottle of milk to sell it to the consumer. Okay, for this reason, in the case of industries such as supermarket, or you can also think of other manufacturing companies where the raw material and labor requirement is highly intensive, they will have higher variable costs. But in case of other industries such as these hotels and airline industries, as you can see in the income statement of this British Airways, of course there will be variable costs such as the cost related to fuel, which basically means you fly more, the more fuel is consumed. But if you see the nature of other expenditure, other cost, it is heavily fixed cost driven. I have another example here from American Airlines. You can see there is fuel related cost, but majority other costs here such as the salary to permanent staff members, aircraft rent and so on are fixed cost. Okay, now we want to understand degree of operating leverage. The meaning, the implication of a higher fixed cost in total cost composition will be that when there is a small change in shell price, okay, the selling price. For example, in the case of airlines companies, when the ticket price is increased even by a small amount, that can have a big impact on operating profit. So profit will go up significantly higher, which will not be the case for other industries such as the supermarket industry. Okay, now to digest the concept better, we want to understand by starting what does it mean, what is the simple definition of degree of operating leverage. Okay, so the meaning is by how much the profit will change as a result of a change in sales. So it also talks about the sensitivity of operating profit, also known as EBIT, in relation to a change in sales. So you can implement this formula or the accounting very simple formula, which is a degree of operating leverage, which is given by sales minus variable cost divided by earning before interest and tax. Now you may already know sales minus variable cost is also known as contribution margin. Okay, so in that sense this equation here can also be written in this format. Okay, so here is a simple example where I'm saying sales, let's say, is 100 million and variable cost is 40. That then basically means contribution margin is going to be 60. Now let's assume that the fixed cost is 30, therefore earning before interest and tax following this formula here is going to be the contribution minus the fixed cost, therefore 30. Now degree of operating leverage as indicated here by this formula is going to be the contribution divided by the earning before interest and tax, also known as operating profit, which is 2. So now what this means is basically this degree of operating leverage in the case of this particular example is telling you that in the case of this company, as a hypothetical company, 1% change in sales will lead to a 2% change in earning before interest and tax. Okay, so the last thing I will do in the case of this example here is just to show you how it works. So let's say that the sales increased by 10%. So you type in 1.10, so you get 110. When sales increases, of course, variable cost will also increase by, let's say, same percent. It will now become 44. Okay, so therefore the contribution now is not 60, rather 66. Okay, now fixed cost doesn't change. Fixed cost remains the same, which is 30. Earning before interest and tax, therefore now is this number, which should be 36. Okay, so what does that mean? Degree of operating leverage is saying 1% change should lead 2% change in operating profit. This is exactly what we can see here. 10% increment in sales has led to a 20%, because it's 2, so 20%. So if you see 20% of 30 is going to be this exact 36, right? This exact 36. So that is basically the concept of degree of operating leverage. Okay, so in this formula, some of you may think, oh, degree of operating leverage, the background is to do with fixed cost. Therefore, in case of industries such as airline industries, the degree of operating leverage will be higher than in the case of supermarket industry, for example, right? But in this case, in this formula, where is the fixed cost? In fact, the fixed cost is already inside earning before interest and tax. That's not something to be forgotten, because EBIT equals sales minus variable cost minus fixed cost. Okay, so that was just the illustration of the example which I already included in our discussion in that Microsoft Excel file. And now, using the same logic of degree of operating leverage, you can understand degree of financial leverage, because degree of financial leverage tells you how sensitive earning per share is to changes in earning before interest and tax. Remember, in case of degree of operating leverage, what you said is how sensitive earning before interest and tax is in relation to change in sales. This is what you had said. Same logic here, and what you are saying is this time degree of financial leverage, not operating leverage, will be equal to percent of change in earning per share divided by percent change in earning before interest and tax. That basically means how sensitive the earning per share is in relation to a change in earning before interest and tax. Okay, any question, feel free to email me, and thank you very much for your time, and thank you very much for listening. Thank you.